What's happening, everyone? Last Mandalorian recap breakdown for now. This is different than Watchmen, because Watchmen, what we said was the final word. We still have speculation at the finale of season 1 of this show. We could have more with Watchmen, but you get the point. There's a lot to speculate on, even though we did wrap some things up with Mandalorian here for Chapter 8. Last episode of the season, initial reaction. KenJac, what did you think? We'll save the big reveal for when we're going to talk Easter eggs. So we're going to get into the two, I would say there's two pretty big things that we're going to talk about from this show. But overall, what did you think about this final episode directed by Taika Waititi?
Yeah, really great episode. I think you kind of see a lot of Taika Waititi's flair in it, in that you get a lot of good humor, some good drama, a little bit of life lessons along the way. Really great action. Like, as far as like the fight scenes have gone so far in Mandalorian, I really, really like the battle scenes in this, and an awesome setup for the future. We're going to talk again about it in a little bit in Easter eggs, but great setup for some stuff that we're going to hear about in the next season.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. I thought this episode played out almost like an 80s action movie in the plot, the way everything went along, the pacing of it. Taika Waititi was amazing. His first step into the Star Wars universe he knocked it out of the park. I would love to see more of him, either in The Mandalorian or give him a movie. I don't care. Like, he's Taika Waititi. The humor was great. The emotion in this episode, like, it brought me on the roller coaster. I was screaming at my computer over and over again at multiple moments. I was cheering. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, get that jetpack, Mando. Like, there were so many moments that were making me go crazy. I thought this, honestly, the finale could not have gone better.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this exceeded expectations that I had. And there were a lot of questions, too. You're like, all right, what are they going to answer here? And I think we got a lot of non-answer answers in some areas, but it was in a satisfying way where it was, again, almost like what we had described with Watchmen. It's like we answered a lot of questions but opened up more doors, which is great. Like, I like that. Like, that's exactly what we wanted. We know a lot of the base level stuff, and now the questions that open up are open in so many different directions that I don't really know where they're going to go with the next season. Obviously, it's going to follow Baby Yoda. It's going to follow Mandalorian, and Moff Gideon, Giancarlo Esposito's character, is going to be a huge player in the next season, where he was just really in this for 1.2 episodes. Like, he was in it for like 20% of the last episode, maybe, even if that. So he's going to be a major player in the future seasons. And a big rest in peace to Nick Nolte's character, Quill, who is for sure very dead.
And our guy IG-11. Like, we'll get to it, but what a noble sacrifice by our guy IG-11.
It reminded me of that scene from Volcano. It was pretty awesome.
But you could also people have been talking about Terminator too. He's like, yeah, he should have given the old fucking thumbs up as he knelt it down. But I will say, I'll leave the door open a little bit for Taika Waititi's IG-11, only because it's a robot with the voice. Like, I feel like maybe, but I mean, again, Quill, just very dead. Just a
major
very,
yeah. At least Mando gave him like a proper burial. That was nice. Put the hat on top of the rock grave. It was cool.
The little cairn. It was cool.
Yeah. It was nice. Nice end. All right, let's get to Easter eggs though, because this is big. This is a big Easter egg episode. A lot of things from Rebels and Clone Wars too. I would suggest right off the bat, if you have not seen Star Wars Rebels or Star Wars Clone Wars, I would binge the hell out of them. For two reasons. One, if you like Mandalorian and you haven't seen those, it connects a lot. It doesn't connect like very necessary things. I would say that this episode, we actually, for the first time, got things where if you haven't seen Rebels or Clone Wars, you'd probably be a little confused. But not to a point where like ruins the show. And also, Clone Wars is coming back in February on Disney Plus. So it would you may as well start now. The Darksaber, that's the big reveal. We're just going to start off with a big one. There's no point in saving it for the end. The last shot of season 1, Moff Gideon busts through the TIE fighter that crash land. A lot of TIE fighter survivals recently.
I know. I was thinking that.
Yeah, they're indestructible, I guess, now. He busts through and cuts a hole in the TIE fighter with a Darksaber, a Mandalorian Darksaber, which is
the Darksaber.
It is only one. There's one Darksaber. We've seen it. We'll explain who's had it and then kind of the order there. But that we've never seen in live action. We've seen that in Clone Wars. We've seen that in Rebels. It's a huge deal with the Mandalorians. And correct me if I'm wrong, KenJac, it signifies the leader of the Mandalorians as a people.
Yeah, so it was made by Tar Vizsla, who was the first Mandalorian Jedi, and the Jedi kept it after he died. and it was stolen back by the Mandalorians after the fall of the Old Republic, and it was passed down by the Vizsla clan, and it was like symbolic for the first, like the ruler of Mandalore. Like they kind of just held it. There's their thing.
Because the first person to get it back was Pre-Vizsla, who was voiced by Favreau.
Not the first person to get it back, but the first person we see with it. And yeah, Pre-Vizsla, obviously voiced by Favreau, the showrunner for the All Mandalorian, who was the governor of Concordia, which is a moon of Mandalore, and he was moonlighting, like no pun intended, as the leader of Death Watch. And Death Watch is like this terrorist organization for those of you that didn't watch Clone Wars, and they want Mandalore to renounce pacifism and go back to the warrior way. And they fail to take over Mandalore. Death Watch folds into Darth Maul's organization. Maul kills Vizsla and then takes the Darksaber, who uses it to kill him. He kills Duchess Satine, who's the pacifist ruler of Mandalore, and then we kind of get a little break from it until Rebels, where Ezra and Maul find it, and then it goes to Sabine. Sabine is a Mandalorian, and she gets it and passes it on to Bo-Katan, who is a former member of Death Watch and also Duchess Satine's sister, I think. And she uses it to rally the Mandalorians.
Was a lover of Obi-Wan at one point, correct?
Duchess Satine was
proper, yes.
Yes, Duchess Satine was like Obi-Wan's girlfriend, more or less. But so Bo-Katan gets it. She's Duchess Satine's sister, and she uses it to rally the Mandalorians to fight against the Empire. And that's the last time we saw it. But then at some point, it passes on to Moff Gideon, obviously, and we get a little bit of a teaser with that when the Mandalorian mentions that he worked for the ISB, which is the Imperial Security Bureau, and which is like their version of the CIA. And so he worked for the ISB during the Great Purge. So obviously he gets control at some point, either then or maybe after when the Empire falls.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're going to see Bo-Katan at all, but that is the last person we knew in canon to have it. There's a pretty, not a huge gap, but a decent-sized gap of what, like 10 years maybe?
Something
maybe
like
even
that,
more between then and now, where Moff Gideon now has the Darksaber. It looked very cool. Very awesome. Cool live action.
So cool.
It looked unbelievable in live action, and that shot of him when he's standing on top of the TIE fighter with the Darksaber ignited and just looking out onto the horizon. I sent you a screenshot before, Jeff, and I was just like, man, I cannot believe we're actually seeing this. Like, fucking Gustavo Fring is standing on top of a wrecked TIE fighter with the Darksaber. The Darksaber. It just blew my mind, and I knew he was alive. I feel like they hinted at that in Star Wars. If you don't see a dead body, if you don't see a burial, the person is going to be alive. But when they cut to it and the Jawas are taking it apart and then that Darksaber stabs through, I was yelling. It was, what a reveal. It's an awesome, it has that history from the cartoon, so that's cool. And I like that it's Jon Favreau's character had to do with it. Maybe like, hey, I remember when we were doing those Clone Wars episodes, that was a good idea. Let's fucking bring it back. Darksaber.
It's almost not a shock either, because Filoni's now done it in multiple series. This is his third time he's done it. And you think back on it, you're like, I guess we should have expected. I mean, I thought about it, but it's also one of those things where it felt like it would have looked weird live action. Like it just because
doesn't. It looks so cool.
It's like a katana. It's so sick, dude. I didn't think it would work either, but it works so well.
Yeah, it looks very good. So again, the Vizslas, they were the first people to have it. Pre-Vizsla was the one who took it back from the Jedi or had it down the line. It's the first person we had seen. Darth Maul had it. Kanan had it very briefly in Rebels. Sabine had it. Sabine Wren. Wren is a name we've talked about a little bit here with Mandalorian. And then Bo-Katan had it. And now, again, a big gap, but now we see Moff Gideon has it. So that's a Darksaber. Very cool weapon. We could go probably talk about it for a while. I would, again, suggest watching Rebels, watching Clone Wars. We even do some deep YouTube dives. You can learn much more about it, because I know some people, a lot of the questions we had were about the Darksaber, people who had not seen either Rebels or Clone Wars. KenJac, you mentioned a couple things with this, mainly Death Watch, Mando's flashback. We finally see Mandalorian's full flashback start to finish without anything really cut up. We see how he was saved and who saved him. We'd guessed many different people. And for some reason, the most obvious answer we never even guessed. And it's just he's saved by Mandalorians. He's saved by Death Watch specifically. KenJac, you mentioned it. Death Watch is kind of the terrorist offshoot of the Mandalorian as a people. They didn't agree with how Mandalore was all set up, and they aligned with Darth Maul at one point. Then they were eventually split in two after they gained rule of Mandalore, and that's where we get Bo-Katan. She was on the good side of things, but he was saved by Death Watch. So we see live action Death Watch. Pre-Vizsla was part of Death Watch, et cetera, et cetera. So neat to see that is who saved him. And again, like Obi-Wan and all that made sense, but the more you think about it, you think about even though they were kind of at peace and like they had like a good bond at times, we knew even from like Rebels and Clone Wars and just Star Wars canon that the Jedi, and they mentioned in here, the Jedi and Mandalorians, not friendly.
No, sure.
Historically. So now when you think about it and you're like, all right, maybe it didn't make sense for Obi-Wan to bring him to the Mandalorians. And he just was flat out. Din Djarin is his name. We've known that. The spelling was the only variation that we kind of got a new thing on here. But he was saved as a kid by the Mandalorians, by Death Watch, and became a Mandalorian. He honored the creed when he became old enough. So that was a cool reveal. I like that. Again, we didn't guess it. Not one of us, I don't think, said that, which is kind of funny thinking back on it.
And especially the Death Watch thing in it, that kind of adds to the lore and the backstory of the character. We heard in episode or chapter 6, Bill Burr's character, when they were going back and forth, there was the Twi'lek that was like, hey, you enjoyed what you were doing back there. And he was like, no, that's the old me. It's like, well, maybe, yeah. If he was raised by Death Watch, this insane terrorist organization of Mandalorians, he probably did start off way more savage and way more insane than he is now. And maybe he's just kind of coming into society, and we're seeing that happen. So I like that it was Death Watch. I like that it was added to the lore, and all of the Death Watch scenes looked amazing. All of the shots of them with the jetpacks fighting the super battle droids. That was awesome.
Blue armor and everything. Yeah, you get to see a lot of that in Clone Wars. Death Watch just like doing bombings on Mandalore because Mandalore is referred to this pacifist society, and they want them to go back to like the warrior way and all that stuff. So they're very militaristic. They're like Spartans almost. Like if you like know anything about that, they're very much just like the Spartans.
You can kind of see too. You get the sense of what side when the Mandalorians or when Death Watch split. You can obviously tell which side Din Djarin, our guy Mando, side with. But you're right. That does give you a bit more insight into what Bill Burr said and in what that episode told us about Mandalorian and who he was kind of when he was first coming up in the ranks with the Mandalorian. So cool to see Death Watch. Also part of that flashback, we see B-2 super battle droids again. We'd seen them for a while. More shots of them. I think as many shots of them in this as we saw them in Attack of the Clones.
That flashback was great. I love that flashback because there's just 20 straight minutes of whatever his people are just getting mowed down by B-2 battle droids. And I thought they were maybe an advanced version of them or something at first because the plating on their arm looked different. Like where the lasers come out of their, like the wrist lasers come out, they had like this weird circular shield thing on them. And I was like, oh, is this like a B3 battle droid, a B4 battle droid? And I was looking it up and I'm like, oh, maybe they just look a little different. I don't know if it's a variation or what, but yeah, not a thing.
Anytime I see the battle droids, I think of that one character from the Techno Union. What's his name? He kind of has like the metal plates and the goggles.
The big goggle eyes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What's his damn name? Wat Tambor? Yeah.
Wat Tambor?
He has to adjust his thing to talk. It's like a translator box. More droids, though. HMP droid gunships. We'd seen them before. It was kind of a dead giveaway when we first saw that. We didn't pick up on that. I think many people didn't, that it was battle droids because it was flying out. That was one of the first things we saw in the first flashback we got early on. So we see that again. Again, we see that his name is Din Djarin. I don't know if I even wrote it down properly. Din Djarin. People, there have been some variations of it again. This was kind of the only big difference. Moff Gideon references a couple things. He references the Siege of Mandalore, which we've talked about a bunch. The Siege of Mandalore has been explored a little bit in Clone Wars and Rebels. It's been mentioned here, I think, briefly, but it's going to be a big focus of Clone Wars the next season that's going to be on Disney+. The Siege of Mandalore with Ahsoka Tano, handling things with Darth Maul, like all of that is going to be explored more heavily than it ever has been before. The Siege of Mandalore, obviously a massive part. It happened right around when Order 66 took place, when Palpatine kind of flipped the table and the Jedi basically went extinct. So the Siege of Mandalore, mentioned, not a ton on that yet. I imagine we're going to get into that in the next season, right? Like Siege of Mandalore will probably be a fairly big thing, as well as the Purge, the Great Purge of Mandalore, which, KenJac, you mentioned, it would seem as though in the Great Purge, when they went and got Beskar, that Moff Gideon slipped it and just plucked the Darksaber from the from the vaults on Mandalore.
Yeah, I think either that or maybe when the Empire fell, like he made sure he got to the vault and took it before the Empire went down. Like he was essentially looting, more or less. But I don't know for sure. He also mentioned something called the Night of 1,000 Tears. He's like, yeah, remember the gunships that were mowing down Mandalore during the Purge during the Night of 1,000 Tears. And I think we're getting a little bit on that. It sounds kind of similar to like Kristallnacht during like World War II, and the Nazis like did all the horrid shit they did to the Jews in the early 30s, because that was the Night of Broken Glass. So I think maybe it's going to be something like that, where they like purge out all the old militaristic people of like in Mandalore, maybe.
Yeah, that would be really cool because the Night of 1,000 Tears had the best name ever in terms of that. Just made me terrified immediately.
Horrifying, right? Yeah,
yeah. I feel like they could really make it terrifying to watch, because we saw that with the last episode. Like they were like just maybe some music cues away from it being a horror movie, right? The last episode, or 2 episodes ago, when they were with Bill Burr's character. So they can make it pretty fucking devastating. Even the flashback scene, like you said, it was. I mean, they're just getting mowed down. It was very negative, very not a positive experience for Mando.
Sure not.
We also see E-Web heavy repeating blasters, which they set up. Moff Gideon threatens to basically mow down Greef Karga, Cara Dune, and Mando with a big blaster. We first ever saw that in Hoth. They set one up in Hoth and Empire Strikes Back, and they were going to fire on. I don't think they got any shots off, did they?
I don't think so.
I don't think they got any shots off. But they tried to fire on the Millennium Falcon. It didn't work out. Those things are very heavy duty. In the antagonizing scene of Moff Gideon yelling at them and trying to talk about how I know all your secrets, like you better give it up at this point, blah, blah, blah. He mentioned that Cara Dune is from Alderaan.
Amazing fold to her character.
Right? Yeah.
Says a lot.
As soon as he said that, I was just like, oh, Favreau did it again.
Because we had mentioned, and this is one that, again, we didn't guess this. I'm not going to give us credit, but we had mentioned multiple times, we're like, damn, she doesn't just dislike Imperial. She despises them at a level that we hadn't seen, not just in this show, but really anywhere. Like, where people are like, come on, rebels, resistance. But no, she can have plans to do something for the rest of her life. But if you say that your plan involves killing Imperials, boom, drop of a hat, she's gone. She's going to go. She hates them that much. And it makes sense. She was from Alderaan. Her homeworld was blown up. So, yeah, that was a nice little added layer to her character. I'm sure we're going to explore much more there. Very curious about her, any relation to, like, Bail Organa, anything potentially to Leia. KenJac, you already mentioned it. ISB officers, Imperial Security Bureau. Moff Gideon was one of them. We've seen that in Rebels and every Star Wars thing has ISB officers. They usually have what's his face? Was he an ISB officer? Ben Mendelsohn's character?
I think so. Yeah. He's he's in development and shit, but there's characters like main characters in
his name?
Rebels and shit that are ISB officers and all that. Like the agents. Anytime you hear agent, Krennic.
Krennic, yeah.
Orson Krennic, right? Nope.
Don't choke on your aspirations, director. I can't do my already bad James Earl Jones. I'm sick. But we've seen that. Agent Callus was another one. Callus was a very young enforcer also. I won't. We've said enough spoilers for Rebels and Clone Wars. I'll keep that one in the bag. But we've seen a bunch of them in various different things going up through the ranks. So we've heard about ISBs before, but never really directly mentioned like this, where they kind of explain like what they are, what they do. Mind flares. I didn't pick up on this or make the connection. Den of Geek had this one. I was looking through some Easter eggs this morning, and they mentioned that mind flares, Cara Dune says it, and Greef Karga is basically saying like that's a conspiracy. Like they don't go into your mind. Like the Imperials don't do that. That was just war propaganda. But Den of Geek mentioned that a mind flare that may be something like the Borg gullet from Rogue One.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah.
That big movie stopping moment where you're like, what?
That's like really weird CG. The guy from the Night of is all,
he's like, where's the med? Yeah, he's like, what the hell is that?
He's like, Bull Gullet nose. You're like, okay, what is this?
Weird moment in Rogue One. It's just they were like, get a creature in there. Get a creature. They sent it back for a creature.
A movie I like, but it stopped the movie dead. That was always weird. So yeah, shout out to Den of Geek. They mentioned that could be that. We see an incinerator stormtrooper.
Sick as hell.
Not a flame trooper. Yeah, an incinerator stormtrooper. Really cool, classic red stripe. We've seen that in video games before. Which we have seen the E-Web heavy in video games before. I want to note that as well. That's probably where people most know it from.
And the gun that Cara Dune is using is like the heavy class from Battlefront 2.
Yep.
The incinerator stormtrooper is just another example of them taking something seemingly pretty ordinary and making it feel terrifying. Like the scene where he's walking in.
Slow-mo walking up,
Shout out to that guy that does the score again, too, because he crushed
Ludwig
it.
Göransson,
Ludwig crushed it the entire episode, but specifically this scene, he made me really terrified of one stormtrooper.
Yeah, very cool to see that. Back to medicine we see as well.
Back to tanks, baby.
Yeah,
Love
described as it's a thick substance. I didn't know it was a thick substance. I thought it was just like regular water, but it's thicker, gelatinous kind of.
Bacta, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
So you'll most recognize Bacta. That is where Luke has a diaper in Empire Strikes Back. He's swimming in that big Bacta tube, and IG-11 sprays it on the back of Mando's head, which we'll get to because obviously the helmet comes off. Cool moment. I'm sure there are some conspiracy theorists out there who didn't think it was actually Pedro Pascal, so they had a disappointing moment. it was just Pedro Pascal, the guy that we know. After that, we have an R2 unit, but a very weird R2 unit, like a Venice gondola R2 unit.
I fucking stood up. I expected to start singing. When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie.
Kind of like
weird.
Is someone going to Photoshop him like hanging Dr. Manhattan dong because he just stands up and he just has no like underlayer basically.
Long ass legs.
Out of its misery, it was like I don't know. It was all fucked up looking,
encrusted into the thing by the lava.
And not like an actual critique, but I didn't like that droid. I don't want to see that droid anymore. It creeps me out.
No, it made me uncomfortable.
Glad he died.
There were little like rats down by the volcano or like the lava. I don't know what those were. I don't think they were womp rats. It was very dark, so I couldn't tell. But there was something. I'm going to brighten up a picture and have it over what we're saying right now. Maybe someone can point it out, but I don't think they were womp rats because I think that's just native to Tatooine. But they were little creatures, like squirrels almost too. We saw Jawas, some more confirmation that Jawas, this is on Navarro, Jawas are from Tatooine.
Capable of space travel, Jawas, now in canon.
Yeah, off-world Jawas is what they call them.
Wait, did these ones have red eyes, though? I don't know.
Yeah.
They did?
What if the sandcrawler can fly? We just don't know it.
We have no idea, yeah.
It just takes off.
That would be, like, that moment wouldn't even be like people would be like, what the fuck?
And they're chanting like, Suka at the egg, while they also space travel in their fucking giant crawler.
Old quotes that kind of reminded me of something. This one may not be an Easter egg, but Moff Gideon says, what do you want? He's like, reasonable negotiations. And that just reminded me of the classic Attack of the Clones term, aggressive negotiations. A line people, I'm sure, just love to hear over and over again. And then when the TIE fighter rounded the corner, Moff Gideon's TIE fighter at the end, Cara Dune said, here he comes, or here they come. And it reminded me exactly of A New Hope. When they hear, not the name of the song, like Here They Come too. Like
I think it is, the John Williams cue,
Dun, 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 yeah. That was neat. And then one cameo, and this will roll into breaking down the episode. We start off with a hilarious scene of troopers. It reminded me of
not that hilarious. Some of it was pretty fucked up in my opinion.
I know. We'll get to that with Robbie in a second. I know, Robbie, I felt it for you there.
Yeah, I felt the disturbance in the Force when I watched that scene, and it was Robbie punching his pillow, wanting to kill these guys.
It reminded me there was like an old like fan-made stuff, basically. Like there was a Troopers show that one website had. Do you ever see that? Like it was
yes.
Oh yeah.
Then there was one that was like a cops type stormtrooper show.
Yeah,
all fan-made stuff. And
people
it reminded me
do it with video games too, like Red versus Blue style.
Yeah. So it reminded me exactly of that. But the main trooper talking was Jason Sudeikis of SNL and many other thing fame. And I couldn't put the damn name on it. I'm like, God, that is such a familiar voice. And we've had that a couple times where I'm like, oh, that's who it is. This one I knew, and I was so mad. I think it was so early I couldn't put it together. The second I figured out it was Jason Sudeikis, I'm like, oh, of course. Jason Sudeikis, a scout trooper. And you can see the slit in the helmet, which we had. I'm losing my papers in the wind here, but you can see the slit in the helmet, which you mentioned, KenJac, is that when Ezra in Rebels, when he opens up the helmet, you're like,
yep.
What? How they open up?
What the fuck?
They don't just come off? Like, what? You can kind of see it.
Deeply shocking.
And the funniest the funniest joke with them is them trying to just shoot something on the ground.
Yep.
And showing
God, I was dying.
What's wrong with my blaster?
So funny. The worst aim. And they just accept it too. That's the best part.
Yeah.
They're like, all right.
I know people are going to be pissed about this too. The people that are like, stormtroopers don't have bad aim. They were letting the Falcon get away so Vader could try. Like those people, they're going to be pissed off. I was dying at this. So
funny.
And it especially speaks to how funny it was, being this came right after they were fucking punching my guy Baby Yo in a bag.
Let's talk about the episode. It starts off the troopers who also killed Queel. Like,
murdered him.
They murdered our guy, our
Unglatt King.
Yeah, our space pig king. They have Baby Yoda. They punch Baby Yoda multiple times.
In like a messenger bag. I mean, come on, at least get like a bassinet or something.
Yeah,
I'm gonna start a whole Netflix documentary to get on these guys. Don't fuck with Baby Yo.
Don't fuck with Baby Yo. Let's hunt him down. Yeah.
It was like shocking, and I love that they put it in here because it riled everyone up watching. Everyone's like, "What the fuck? Kill these guys!"
Which is like, do you think when they were making this, like they shot the whole season before it came out? Obviously, do you think Favreau and Filoni were sitting there like with Taika filming that scene, being like, "People are gonna be so angry at this. They're gonna love Baby Yoda so much," and then by the time we get to this, and these stormtroopers are just like, "The fuck is this pet?" Like
wailing on him.
The fuck.
It kind of that whole scene reminded me. That whole scene was super Waititi. It was super Taika Waititi.
Yes.
It kind of reminded me of the scene, and I forget his name. It's the guy. Oh man, I'm blanking on all names. He's in Star Trek. Carl Urban, his character, Scourge, right?
Yeah.
In Thor Ragnarok, he's showing the Asgardian women all his cool toys he has. It had that kind of vibe to where it's very casual. It's not like exactly in line with the story, and it feels not out of place, but it's like kind of an extra add-on. That's basically what it felt like in the beginning. They're talking about how Moff Gideon is trying to make speeches basically in downtown Navarro, and he's just picking off his own people. He was like, "Shut the fuck up, let me talk, let me like intimidate these people."
That's one of my favorite things too, is when the stormtroopers just like sort of accept that their rulers suck ass. Like those moments, like I'm thinking even in Last Jedi when Hux says like, "Yeah, like stop firing," and like Kylo just tosses him, and then like the soldier in front is like, "Okay, we're landing right now. Whatever you want, sir."
Yep.
Right, whenever they just accept that, it just cracks me up. Like they're just like, "Yeah, Moff Gideon's mowing down all our own soldiers. He just killed someone who tried to interrupt him." Like that cracks me up every time.
I don't want them to overdo this, but I definitely would love it to be like part of the show every now and then. If we just cut away to two stormtroopers bullshitting, like somebody mentioned on the Star Wars Reddit right away, it reminded me of when you would walk off on a Star Wars campaign in a video game, you could overhear two stormtroopers that clearly like they put into the game to make you laugh.
Yeah,
or the grunts in Halo 3 or something like.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I would love if. And especially everyone wants in on Star Wars now, like Jason Sudeikis. Kevin Smith is in The Rise of Skywalker. Like people just get little cameos here and there. Put comedians and famous people in stormtrooper helmets and let them banter for 5 minutes.
Especially now that we know, like stormtroopers, they've very much phased away from clones, and they're just regular ass people. And there's nothing more regular. And it's like, oh, it's Jason Sudeikis, it's a stormtrooper.
Except for these shitheads. Glad they're dead.
Yeah, we're very happy they're dead. But I will say something that stuck out to me and I thought of when this ended is that we get Moff Gideon, we get stormtroopers talking, is that for basically all the Skywalker saga, and even like Rogue One, you get Orson and Krennic, but for the most part, the Imperials, the bad guys, it's all the same couple people. And you get a couple lines from ISB officers in Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Moff Tarkin, but you don't get a lot of little different players. And it's kind of one of the more refreshing things that we don't talk about with this show, that we not that we take for granted, but you don't think about it. And when you do stop to think, you're like, oh shit, like we don't really ever hear stormtroopers talk. Like they talk very rarely, and it's cool to see kind of even more inside the Imperials, kind of pulling back of the curtain. IG-11 comes and saves the day, saves Baby Yo. They punched him again. IG-11 says, "Stop fucking touching that thing. I'm a nurse droid," and then just
I was
breaks their
cheering
arms.
him on. Like I was laying in bed with my laptop on my chest, like half asleep. Had just started the episode. I was like, "Fuck yeah, IG-11, you're my boy. You're my boy. You got him."
It breaks their arm, smashes that one guy's face in on the speeder bike, and then takes a bike and drives with Baby Yoda. Episode starts. Moff Gideon is there threatening. This picks up from the last episode. We already mentioned he reveals all their backstories. Not a ton on Grief Karga. We've heard that Carl Weathers say that Grief Karga, we're going to learn more about him in the next season. So they didn't give away too much there. But they also noted something interesting that will for sure come into play. Cara Dune noted that he was executed. He's like, there's no way that's Moff Gideon. He was executed for war crimes. So someone kept him alive. Yes. And we will for sure find that out in the next season, whether it's someone on the inside of the New Republic, all that. He was supposed to be dead. He is alive. So that is a huge, it was a quick but very big hint as to what's to come with Moff Gideon. Baby Yoda, IG-11 comes and saves the day. They're basically trying to escape and they can't. There's no room. IG-11 flies in with Baby Yoda. Great Baby Yoda babysitter, by the way. Puts Baby Yoda in the right spots when he's shooting.
Bjorn,
flies in, for the most part, saves the day. Not totally though, because Moff Gideon now steps in with the Death Troopers as well. They kind of corner Cara Dune, and then it's about to be a old Western standoff between Moff Gideon and Mando, and Moff Gideon pulls a genius move and blows up the power source, of the E-Web, and almost kills Mando. Blows him right back.
Sith Troopers were cool as hell, by the way, doing hand-to-hand combat with Mando, like MMA moves on. You noticed, I'm sure, Robbie?
The Death Troopers, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Death Troopers. They're doing all that sick-ass, like, hand-to-hand combat, and obviously were way harder to kill than any of the Stormtroopers.
Totally. One of them, like, got the upper hand on him and put him on his ass. So, like, seeing that, making them badass, the actual, I guess, montage / action sequence of IG-11 coming in with Baby Yoda strapped on him on that speeder bike and, like, shooting everyone on his way with the way the arms operate. That was so cool. The way that it was shot, the way that he was coming in at seemingly 1,000 miles an hour, and he just like skidded around that. The whole action sequence, really, really cool. Another thing that reminded me of like an 80s action movie in a really good way.
Yes. Even the way, sorry, I'll let you go, KenJac. Even the way he flew in and like let that like the speeder bike flies off and just like takes people out. And he's just so cavalier about it. It was hilarious.
It's like a bowling ball or something.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I want to know. I'll backtrack a little bit to the point where Moff Gideon is just kind of like talking about them and like giving their backstory and shit. They mentioned former disgraced magistrate Grief Karga. What is a former magistrate? That's not his title with the guild, as far as I'm aware. Did he used to work for the Empire?
Let's look it up. Oh, maybe if he's disgraced, maybe
that makes me think he was a former judge or something for the Empire. Which that would make me. It's very interesting to me, that kind of thought process. But I just want to keep that in mind for later.
Yeah, so
and there's very like brief things that we know about him, but all of them add up to this is a guy that you should be afraid of. Like, think he's out for war crimes. He's a disgraced whatever.
Oh, Gideon, yeah.
He's executing whoever there is. Like, all this stuff about Gideon, terrifying.
So clearly, like, again, big players in the next season, because you're right. You set that up with Grief Karga about what he used to be, disgraced. Moff Gideon, you say he's supposed to be dead. And that goes back to they answered a bunch, but they also opened a bunch as well. Like, they didn't answer a ton on Cara Dune, but now we kind of get it, right? It clicks with Cara Dune. In Mandalorian, we basically know his entire backstory, at least like the main bullets. And now we have two more that we're going to learn about.
Did you guys have any thought process? Because the flashback happens right before all this happens, and like they get the flashback to the Mandalorian's childhood. I couldn't figure out what planet they're on. Obviously, you're not supposed to, but the architecture looks sort of similar to Naboo, but like the planet didn't look like the vegetation, all that shit didn't look anything like that. But I also did have my my Titanic moment where I was like, they could all fit in that cellar. The whole family could have fit in that cellar. That was a big ass cellar. They're like, nope, sorry, you can only make it.
And even if you needed to close it from the outside, one of them could have jumped in.
Yeah, literally. At least put the mom in. I mean, Christ.
They're celebrating Life Day. I'm still convinced of that, by the way.
Yeah, all the rest.
I'm still convinced that's Life Day. So now they're all trapped inside. Cara Dune comes out, picks up Mando, drags him in. They're kind of fucked. The incinerator stormtrooper is just blowing everything up inside, setting it all on fire. And Baby Yoda's like, all right, enough of this shit. Uses the Force, puts his hands out, and basically has like a parting of the Red Sea moment. Yeah. And blows the fire back, kills the incinerator stormtrooper, and saves the day for now, because now IG-11's going to bust a hole in the Seward vent. And they're going to escape. However, Mando doesn't want to. He wants to sacrifice himself because he thinks he's going to die. He's pretty injured. He's gravely injured.
And he wants the warrior's death. It makes sense being the whole Mandalorian clan. I thought of Dave right away, our boss Dave, when Baby Yoda, put the hands up, destroyed that incinerator stormtrooper. Because all season he's been like, that baby's got to start doing something. He's got to start doing more.
Yes.
As soon as he did that, I was like, what more could you ask for, Dave? There it is. Baby Yoda for life.
Can we start making stormtrooper armor out of sewer grates? Because apparently literally everything can deflect like blaster bolts except for stormtrooper armor. The only thing, like the walls of the prison can, sewer grates are impenetrable. Like start building something else use something else to make stormtrooper armor.
Yeah, I mean, she was shooting point blank.
Point blank, doing no damage whatsoever.
So Mando, he again doesn't want to go, and he's like, no, you have to take my helmet off. Like, no living person see me. And IG-11's like, I'm not a living person. Like, I'm a nurse droid. Like, I'm not a hunter. Takes off his helmet. Again, it's not a crazy reveal. Like, it's cool to see, but it's one of those weird things. Like, we know it's Pedro Pascal. I never waver, right? Like, did you ever think like it could maybe not be? Yeah. No. So it's just kind of cool to see. He's very
He
bloody.
looked like shit. He looked
did.
like dog shit.
Yeah, he was about to
He
die.
did.
And then
Sweaty and
IG-11
bloody.
hit him with that shit that like it was almost like the nanotech stuff that Tony Stark healed.
Yeah.
That's the back to stuff.
Yeah. That stuff I thought was just basically nanotech. So that was cool. Seeing the way he was bleeding, seeing how Mandalorian has over the course of the season sort of already warmed up a bit to droids. He's letting the droid, especially IG-11. We'll get to the sacrifice in a bit, and the way the Mandalorian handled that was maybe my favorite part of the episode from like a character development standpoint. But really, really cool emotional scene. Seeing what the Mandalorian
should have been
wanted.
paler. He was a little too. He had a little too much color in him.
True.
He should have been a little more pale.
Very well manicured beard for a guy that never shows his face to anybody.
Yeah. Imagine he just looked like John C. Reilly in like Kong Skull Island. He was just like, I've been in here for 20 years. I haven't shaved.
Pale as hell.
So they meet up with Cara Dune and Grief Karga and Baby Yoda down in the sewers, and they're walking along and they're trying to find the Mandalorian outpost that was there from the beginning of the season.
The covert, baby.
The covert, even though like I don't know what he was looking like. How stupid was he?
I know the whole time I was like, he said that they would have to relocate. I didn't think that they would be there.
They left you, idiot. And so they're all like the armor's there kind of laid out. And then the armorer, she comes over. She's still there cleaning up, trying to fix everything, get things in order and make sure to melt everything down for parts. And they talk a little bit about Baby Yoda. She mentions that the Mandalorians have left.
Some of them. The armor we've seen, they were killed. Seemed like, when they came out of the shadows that they pretty much let their presence be known, and then it went poorly for them, but it was implied that some of them could have gotten away. Yeah,
and she said, like, I hope some of them are still alive, etc. So, like, they're trying to, this is just a part. Well, we actually don't know how many other Mandalorians there are, because we know that with the Purge and everything, things got pretty grim and bad, right? I guess if he has the Darksaber, shit ain't going well for the Mandalorians. We don't know how many more are left. But in her talking about the Mandalorians and where they went and why they're not on Navarro and who's left, she does mention the first person to say Jedi. Talks about the Jedi and says Baby Yoda's a Jedi. Like, she's like, I know exactly what this guy is. Like, this little thing. Like, I know what he's doing. He's a Jedi. She mentions kind of the backstory that we know if you watch Rebels or Clone Wars. There's no Star Wars canon that long ago the Jedi fought the Mandalorian. This goes back to what we talked about earlier with the Darksaber. We won't repeat too much of it. But she does mention very specifically, she's like, yes, they were enemies. Mandalorian's kind of surprised to hear that, but Baby Yoda is not. And she's like, he is, you must take after him and look after him. He's like, do I train him? He said, no, she's too weak. He would die. Like, you have to go find his species. You have to bring him species or raise him yourself. Like, you have to figure it out. He is your foundling now. Which is, again, what Mando was. And Baby Yoda's referred as a foundling, I think, in this episode, either for the first time or for the most we've heard in this series. And that again, that's another light bulb in the head. We did talk about that one. Like, Mando sees himself with Baby Yoda, right? Like, he's a baby that needs saving. And that's kind of the big thing from the armorer is that this is like, you must now look after this baby. Like, this is your calling. This is part of the creed for you, basically. She gives him the new signet, which was it the Mudhorn?
Yes.
I couldn't tell. It looked like the Mudhorn. And
then
he gets a jetpack.
He gets the jetpack. We've been waiting for that forever. It looked like a Beskar jetpack too. And I loved that she called Mando and Baby Yoda a clan of two. She said, you are now a clan of two. I was like, oh, that's just a badass way to put it. They're a clan of two. Mm-hmm. They are. That's my guy and that's my baby. Everything she was saying about Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian, and his kind may be enemies, but he is not. Just pushing more of the don't judge a book by its cover that this season's been all about. Same thing with droids, same thing with Baby Yoda, with IG-11. So I enjoyed all of that, and it was the most I liked the armorer all season.
Yeah, the armorer fucking up those guys right after this was awesome as hell. Breaking
really
armor.
Awesome.
Smashed that dude's jaw off. It was sick as hell.
I know. It looked like those Mortal Kombat scenes when you see like the fragments of bone go everywhere. That was awesome. Yep.
She's clearly a great warrior. Do you think that she could be maybe Bo-Katan or maybe Sabine Wren? Do you think she's someone that we know?
That. I don't. I feel like maybe
she knows a lot and she's very aware of the Jedi. So she's been around for a while and she has that knowledge.
It's very possible she's Bo-Katan or one of those players because Bo-Katan obviously lost the Darksaber.
We saw a Darksaber at the end of this episode. I feel like we could see anything now. I feel like in the Obi-Wan series, I'd be shocked if we didn't see a flashback of him and Ahsoka at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the armor is someone that we know.
Yeah, and I think it's cool too because obviously she wanted to give him the Mudhorn signet when he first came back after I think the second episode, and he said like, "No, I can't. I was helped by a friend, and like now this all comes full circle." She's like, "You guys are two. Like that. This is part of your story. I'm giving it to you as your signet."
Which is another upgrade on the armor too.
Yeah.
Just another they're gonna sell 3 different action figures. Yep. Mandalorian episode 1, Mandalorian with the Beskar, Mandalorian with the jetpack and the symbol. I mean, merchandise.
He's gonna be a fucking unit by the end of like season 3. He's gonna have so much shit on him.
What's he called to the Rising Phoenix training? Is that what you said when you were that was at the jetpack training shit?
And then we were just saying who she is. I think that's it on them, right? That's it on the armor. I'll understand on that. I think she is someone. I think she is someone that we know. I think that's not implied, but the way it's set up, it just feels
Boba
like
Fett.
We're gonna Boba Fett's been a woman the whole time. IG-11 has a very Dr. Manhattan moment when they're going along in this boat. Again, they come across a boat in the lava. They're trying to escape. We have that weird gondola R2 unit. And IG-11 again, basically like Dr. Manhattan says, like, there's no way we win. Like I've seen all outcomes. It's 2019. It's a long time ago. It's far from now. Like I've seen all outcomes. You're going to die. I have it built in still to self-destruct. Mando tries to tell him like, no, like your goal is to protect the child. And he's explaining like, yes, like that does override the manufacturer's kind of, I guess, requirement to self-destruct if captured, but he's like, there's no way we survive. So this is the only way to do it. This is the way, basically. And IG-11 goes and blows himself up and kills all the stormtroopers that are on the other side of the lava tunnel. It was tough to see IG-11 go. It was very sad.
This conversation between IG-11 and the Mandalorian was what I was referring to before. Seeing the character progression between those two from episode 1 when the Mandalorian's trying to convince him not to self-destruct, and it's like sort of a funny moment, and he's really saving his own ass. He's like, if you self-destruct, I'm going to die. So no, don't do that. To this episode where IG-11 could sense the sadness in his voice when he's trying to convince him not to self-destruct because he saved his life just now. And he's like, no, like we want you around. You are our nurse. You're part of our crew. You're in this unit, even though he's a droid. So seeing how the Mandalorian has like progressed and, he's more accepting already of droids, of more people. I thought that was brilliant, like a perfect way to bookend the IG-11 character. And then when he blew up and all that, that was just great. It kind of reminded me of Solist, the Battlefront 1 map.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Navarro looks like to me, especially now that we saw the lava.
Yeah, you're right. That is a good point. Yeah,
I really like that line he says to him when he's like, "I'm not upset." He's like, "I'm a nurse droid. I know you're upset."
Yeah,
that cracked me up.
He's like, "I analyzed your vocal cords."
Yep. I could tell you're upset. That was awesome.
There are a couple again funny Taika Waititi moments too in this episode because another one happens after that. The TIE fighter Moff Gideon's going to fly in. I said that here they come, and Grief Karga's like, "Get the baby to do the hand thing. Do the hand thing again."
Yeah.
Which
I love Grief Karga, by the way. I was convinced that they were going to kill him off in this episode. I thought Grief Karga makes some kind of sacrifice or something. Very, very glad he's hanging around for season 2 because I think Carl Weathers is just awesome.
Oh, it's the man. His delivery and everything is so cool. It's such a great addition to, I think, just Star Wars in general. That's like the type of characters we want. Just like not related to fucking Skywalker, blah, 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 whatever. It's like a cool, badass, old school fucking Western dude. And
not distinctly good or evil either.
Yes.
That's like that. Why do you like? Again, this goes back to a whole different debate of fucking Han shoot first. We're not going to get into that. But why do people like Han Solo? Because Han Solo initially, when you see him, like he's a little bad. Like he's a little bad, a little good. He's a smuggler. He's not the best. And I think we get that with Grief Karga. We get that kind of with all these characters. Like there's good and there's bad. Like there's intriguing elements to them where it's not just like very cut and dry, red, blue, good, bad. Like that's just not
all shades of gray.
Yeah. We see him use the jetpack. This was teased in the trailer. So this is we got a couple clips from the trailer that we hadn't seen yet that happened in this episode.
We saw the jetpack in the trailer.
We saw him latch on to Moff Gideon's TIE fighter in the trailer.
Okay. Yep. I don't even remember that. I haven't seen the trailer since probably Celebration or something. So yeah.
Very Turbo Man-esque flying from Mando, but he was able to figure it out. He's able to latch on. He takes down the TIE fighter, puts a detonation device on there.
I want to note here. He says that when they're at the sewer grate, he says, "I'm out of charges. I can't blow it up." Clearly has charges. Very much has charges. Well, no, he has like 20 charges. He loses one.
No, he restocks with the
oh
armor.
Right.
Oh, with the armor. Yeah. Oh man, they thought of everything. They thought of everything, Robbie. God damn it.
She
thought I
said it.
owned
She was
them.
like, why don't you go get your ammunition?
Yeah, go get
Damn
some
it.
ammo, you idiot. You
I've
dumb
been owned by
asshole.
Filoni yet again. Every time.
She
Filoni,
noticed.
just when you think you got all the answers, Filoni changes the questions.
Cara Dune and Grief Karga join forces after he takes down the TIE fighter. Grief Karga is pretty accepting, like, hey, like I love you to have us, or I'd love you to be with us, but it's an open invite. Come back whenever you want, and you'll get every bounty possible. Cara Dune a little hesitant to join up with Grief Karga, but like they're going to be a pretty, I think, good duo together. And Mando says, I have much more important things to tend to, holding Baby Yoda, and then jetpacks away with Baby Yoda, gets on his ship, and flies away. And then it goes to the moment we've talked about already. It pans over, and he just knew he wasn't dead. Again, I didn't expect
Star Wars. Come on, of course he's not dead.
I expected him to kick off the top of the door or something, and then maybe have like a hologram and someone called him. Did not expect him to cut through with the Darksaber. I mean, this much. If you're watching this, and
once I saw that little bit come out, I was like, "Oh, fuck.
yeah.
The littlest bit of that Darksaber, I was like, no way."
Because you could tell the tip. The tip is different than any other lightsaber. It's like a samurai sword tip. So as soon as you see that, it's just like, get the fuck out of here.
So we had talked about it a little bit before. I kind of thought that Gideon was an Inquisitor or something. And when the cutting started happening, I'm like, "Where's the red blade? This guy's an Inquisitor. Here it is." Blah blah blah. But then once the dark tip comes out, I was laying, same as you, Robbie. I'm laying in my bed watching. I audibly screamed. I was like, yes, the Darksaber's back. That's the fan service shit that I live for right there.
So I saw an interesting concept about this it was either the Star Wars speculation Reddit or the Star Wars Reddit. And I wanted to bring it up because going back to the last episode when he was saying he was standing outside that bar and he's like, you have no idea how much that means to me, right? Talking about Baby Yoda. Do you think that maybe Moff Gideon is trying to get the force sensitivity out of Baby Yoda? I won't say metachlorians because I know that's a triggering word to some people. The force sensitivity out of Baby Yoda to put into himself, and he is trying to become the next emperor. Someone brought that up, and I was like, if this guy is just so crazy and he's like that hungry for power that he's like, fuck it, the emperor had like some kind of force sensitivity. If I get a lightsaber and I get the force, I can rule this thing and, hopefully stop the fall of the empire as it's going on.
It is, honestly, I'm trying to look up. I remember they referenced something called Black Saber in Rogue One, and I do want to say I believe that was not Darksaber. I think Black Saber was something completely different. It was some sort of weaponry for the Empire. I just wanted to note that. But it was one of the coolest reveals we've seen in Star Wars. It was such a badass moment. It's probably the coolest shot of the entire series so far. Just him. I love Baby Yoda, love all the cute moments, but him just sitting there with that Darksaber. And we talked about for weeks, you're like, he's got to be someone big. Like, you don't cast someone in that role. You don't see a guy with that stature in the trailers and the promo without it being important. So I like the theories on the Emperor a little bit there and him trying to maybe replicate. But there's a big connection. There will be, I think, more Jedi connection in the next season, which is fine. I don't want it to overpower. I don't want this to become a Jedi show, and I don't think it will. I don't think it will, but I am okay with a little more because it is obviously a major part of the Star Wars universe. So I'm okay with a little bit of it. But that would be my one hope. Like, I don't want it to become too based around the Jedi and the Sith because we have enough of that. We have plenty of that.
I want to see Moff Gideon use that Darksaber like he uses the box cutter next season. Cold open, slicing like someone's head off.
Audience questions, just a couple, because I think we answered most of the questions were centered around the Mandalorians, Death Watch, and Darksaber. At Brian Healy 49 says, "Do you think Baby Yoda will speak before the series ends?"
English?
He'll say something. I think,
where he doesn't coo, where he just says a word.
I don't know about that. I don't think the next.
Do we still think it would be weird? Do we still think it'd be too weird to have it happen where he's just like he speaks? It's like Jason Segel. He's voicing the characters. Like what? Like what's happening here?
I don't know what I expect him to speak, but I don't expect him to put wisdom onto somebody. I'm expecting him to say like one word, maybe two words. Mando. He says Mando. Dad. I don't know.
Thank you. I don't know, something like that. At Saul_434 says, will we be getting more Jedi and Sith folks in the next season?
Yeah.
I would assume yes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I just want to see like some kind of I want to see him put that lightsaber to use. I think
we do get a flashback with Obi-Wan at some point. I do think that because of the Darksaber and because of now learning more about Mandalore, we're going to see Clone Wars type stuff. And I do think it opens up the potential to see Obi, to see even Hayden Christensen back, because they're going to have to go back. They're going to have to talk about the Siege of Mandalore now because it was teased, and they're going to have to go back to that era. Maybe even obviously Ahsoka live action, maybe some Darth Maul. So I think you're going to see
like a random Jedi would be cool too. Show me Kit Fisto.
Yeah,
show me that little weird looking.
Yeah.
Like I don't care. Yeah,
seeing it in flashbacks is where I like it. It's where if it becomes very centric and a main part of present day, that's where I begin to kind of go, maybe like let's not overpower this. And lastly, at Asgardian Star said, still no idea who the fuck it was at the end of episode 5. That's the one big question we didn't get answered. Who was that person, that figure? I've leaned more to Boba Fett, and I think the fact we didn't get it answered makes me now believe it is Boba Fett. Because remember,
Boba Fett.
because Jon Favreau did say in an interview, he said, no, Boba Fett is not in Mandalorian. This was a long time ago, before they started filming season 2. It all kind of makes sense now. I didn't think we'd see him in the season because I didn't think he was like fucking with people. I didn't think it was a J.J. Abrams Khan type thing from Star Trek. Like I believed him. Now I think it's Boba Fett. Now that we haven't seen him yet, I do think we get him in the next season.
See, that's what I thought they were going to do at the end of this episode when they did obviously like their pan away to give you some sort of cliffhanger to go into the next one, which ended up being obviously Gideon cutting out the Darksaber. I thought that was going to be them cutting away, maybe seeing Boba Fett or something like that. I still don't know. I mean, it does like it works, right? Like it would work. But at the same time, I don't know if I want to see Boba Fett. I want as few ties into the main trilogies as possible for this series, because I think that's what helps it work a lot.
Yeah.
It's expanding out into this universe. Again, we always talk about it, this endlessly expansive Star Wars universe. That's what we want more of. We don't want to see everything being tied back like, hey, Boba Fett's actually a Palpatine. Hey, Boba Fett's actually a Skywalker. We don't want any of that. Like, we want this to be its own thing, right? And so maybe I don't want that, but at the same time, it wouldn't be terrible.
Yeah, they already did too much of that with Boba, with being Boba's an unengineered clone of Jango or what.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
All of that. Yeah, that's horrible. I do think it's Boba now. I know we've talked about, we were like, no fucking way would they bring Boba back like that. I've since listened to the audio files that I mocked of his boots, the little spurs on the boots, and the audio transmission. I think it is Boba Fett. I mean, they're spot on. The audio transmission is, and the boots are. I would almost be okay with Boba Fett not being in season 2, but getting like one more tease of this. And then at the end of season 2, give us like, holy fuck, Boba is back. And then you make that, the big thing going forward. I just can't wait for whatever the moment at Star Wars Celebration is when season 2, the trailer drops, and people just lose their minds over whatever it is that we see.
It's kind of crazy to think about because there is going to be a Star Wars Celebration next year, and I imagine that's where we see our first stuff. It's being filmed now. I hope it comes out earlier. I'd imagine it's just going to be the fall again. I feel like they're not going to fuck with that. But it's going to be cool to see what the big reveal is. Filoni's done that with a lot of his stuff. Filoni loves to give a good trailer, a good teaser for Clone Wars.
He's a fan. He gets it.
Yeah, he is. He is a fan. I will say someone made a pretty funny joke the other day that I liked. Whether you like the Skywalker trilogy or not, or the sequel trilogy. Someone said like, oh, the sequel trilogy, it's just fan fiction. And they're like, yeah, it's all fan fiction. It's not George making it. It's literally fan. As long as George Lucas isn't making it, it is fan fiction. But Filoni seems to be pretty fucking good at knowing what people want, but doing it in a way that doesn't feel forced. And this is kind of our final thoughts here on not just this episode, but the first season. He does things, as well as Jon Favreau and the great directors who did this, things that aren't forced, but they still service what fans want to see, and it does it in a way that moves the narrative of the story. Like, it's not just the Darksaber for the sake of like Mandalorian Ex Machina Darksaber had it the whole time. Like, it's advancing the story in a new and different, interesting way, but still servicing what people do enjoy and want to see. And I think that's why, again, I haven't disliked any episodes. You guys each had one episode that you didn't care for as much. I love the idea that it was this kind of plot that built up early on. Kind of faded off. It was still relevant, right? They were building characters and building relationships, and we'd had fun adventure like fucking Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon type action episodes, and then the plot kind of came back at the end. And I wouldn't mind them doing that again. Let's set the plot up for the season, build some more characters, bring people in, kind of have it all come to a head in the final thing there. I want to see more bounty hunters, Bosk, show me Dengar, IG-88 need to go because we've heard that IG-11 got confused with IG-88. Or
that never paid off. Yeah.
There could be more, but my expectations were destroyed with this in a good way. I did not expect this to be as good as it was. I was worried about it. I think everyone was a little worried about Mandalorian. Like this could be kind of stupid. Like, what is this? Like fake Boba Fett ass looking? It's like, what are we doing here?
Now Boba Fett better watch his fucking back because I might have a new favorite bounty hunter. Like, the Mandalorian is just
Mandalorian is infinitely cooler than Boba Fett. I'm saying right here, like Boba Fett, cool toy. That's about it. Like Mandalorian did more cool shit than Boba Fett in the first episode. But I'm satisfied. I think you guys are too. It's been fun doing these.
Incredibly satisfied. I have a big prediction for season 2.
Okay, let's hear it. If you got a prediction, throw it out there.
I think the Mandalorian's armor will go the way of Iron Man's armor. And, Mark II is just that silver Iron Man outfit. I think next season, he's going to paint that thing like a true Mandalorian, get his own colors. And I think it's going to be heavily involved with the color green.
Because they are 2 now. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I like that. 2. Okay.
That's my prediction.
I like that a lot. Just to hop off what Jeff said earlier, I do like a lot of what Mandalorian did, and we're talking again, not to repeat, but like the whole expansion of the universe into stuff that we haven't seen before is so sick. And I do love the serial nature while also incorporating like an overarching narrative, right? Like that works. That's so cool, and there's such a good collective vision for this, which is something we've recently complained about with the main trilogy movies. And it's just it's really, really good. A lot of that has to do with Favreau and Filoni just like knowing what they want to do start to finish. I think that's sick. As far as predictions go, I don't really know. It's really tough to kind of like zero in on where he goes next, because I feel like every episode where we're like, well, obviously they're going to do something related to this. Obviously going to do something related to this. They show we're wrong, and they introduce something new every single time. So I feel like this is a very hard show to predict in the best possible way. Like, I like that. I love that about it.
Yeah,
you never know what to expect episode to episode. This season was a home run for me. There was that one episode, Chapter 5, with the Disney Channel Junior Bobby Cannavale fucking bounty hunter. I hated. Other than that, though, every episode I enjoyed tremendously. This will be something I'll go back and watch and watch and watch.
Oh, yeah.
Season 1 of The Mandalorian, in the books, one of the best pieces of Star Wars content of all time.
I could not agree more, and I think a lot of people agree. It's a very popular opinion. It's just fun. That's the thing. It's just fun TV too.
Very fun.
It's not like stressful. Again, I loved Watchmen, even other HBO stuff like Succession. I know like everyone's Thrones fans, even though last season may disappoint some people, but like, it's not like, oh man, I got to look up this, I got to do this. And like, there's cool Easter eggs about this, but people are enjoying the show who don't know anything about this shit. We're nerds. We love Star Wars, so we're going to break it down. But people who don't know anything about the Darksaber or the fucking Siege of Mandalore, like they're enjoying it because it's a fun action adventure show. And Jon Favreau, Filoni, hurry up, make season 2. Like, this sucks. And I think we are going to do recap videos for Clone Wars and Rebels when we get back to the office after this kind of Christmas break we have. We're going to try to we'll do like a video that recaps each season, so people know what to kind of expect. I'm literally going to start probably tomorrow. I'm going to start diving back and rewatching everything. So I'm
going to start finishing my binge today. I've been binging it over break. So
hell yeah,
I'm going to try to finish it. And by the time we make those videos, I will be all knowledgeable about the cartoons. Finally.
Perfect. Well, thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, as always, hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell icons. We have more videos coming out. We are going to do, again, like I said, more Star Wars stuff and other types of like breakdowns for shows, things coming back as well. It's been a fun ride, but this one, unlike Watchmen, this one ain't over. We'll be back next year for more Mandalorian. For KenJac and Robbie, I'm Jeff Lowe. We'll talk to you next time.